You just knew that was gonna happen, didn't you? I mean, Spurs. Why even turn up if that's the way you're gonna play? Liverpool 4, Spurs nil. And ladies and gentlemen, we have our Carabao Cup final for this season. And off the basis of those two performances, it's hard to say it's not deserved from either side. I'm talking about Newcastle and I'm talking about Liverpool, who tonight were absolutely rampant from minute one. Now, Liverpool entered this game a goal down, courtesy of a Lucas Bergvall goal in the first leg, and they knew that this game needed a big performance. Spurs came into this actually off a win in the Premier League, but you know their form over the last 10 games, it speaks for itself. It hasn't been great. However, there has been this overwhelming feeling that maybe Spurs are going to be a cup side this season. Maybe they are going to be a team that leaves their best form for knockout football and for the big trophies. And yet, it was men versus boys today. I'm going to get to Spurs in a little bit, but let me give my flowers to Liverpool, who tonight have put in such a commanding performance. Like for 90 minutes there, Liverpool did not take their foot off the gas. They were dominant. They were superior in their individual duels. They were superior in individual quality. They were ruthless. In fact, maybe not ruthless enough because they probably could have scored more goals today. They kept Spurs to 0 shots on goal. I'm really trying not to talk about Spurs right now, but they kept Spurs to 0 shots on goal. We're going to talk about Spurs' attack, but let's talk about Liverpool's defense. That's lockdown. That's the definition of lockdown. I will say, within the first few minutes, there was a bit of a because I don't think Van Dijk should have been red carded. Let me say that actually. I'm not trying to say Liverpool got lucky to stay 11 men. The fact he didn't even get a yellow card there, I can't lie, I think he got away with one. We saw yesterday Declan Rice getting away with one massively after the tackle he left on Bruno Guimaraes, not even getting a yellow on that. And I think Van Dijk gets lucky there, not to even get booked. Elbowing Richarlison. Obviously, Richarlison is one of the least popular players I think I can remember playing at Anfield in recent years, obviously due to his Everton connections and just in general being an absolute head case, but we move. And honestly, from there, right, Spurs came into this game with this idea that they were going to play deep, they were going to be settled in, they were going to be pragmatic, they were going to hit you on the break. And Liverpool just kind of looked at them and said, yeah, that's the way you guys want to play against us. That's no problem. Under Arne Slot, we're one of the most versatile teams in world football. We can play on the transition, we can play in possession, we can play in a deep block, we can play non-stop attack. And today, you just saw the best of Liverpool. Seriously, like that's one of the most commanding performances we've seen from Liverpool this season. And this is a team that have been brilliant all year, but this game, wow, they didn't give Spurs a chance. Klinsky made save after save after save, but ultimately it wasn't enough as Mohamed Salah's Trivela cross to the back post evades everyone, and Gakpo grabbed his 5th goal in now what is his 5th Carabao Cup game this season. He's kind of mimicking that impact that Minamino had made for Liverpool all those years back when he was kind of their go-to guy in the Carabao Cup. This year it's been Gakpo. Every single time there's a Carabao Cup game for Liverpool, he seems to be the guy that stands up. And you know what? I think in general this season, he's really had such a bright season in terms of left-sided players in the Prem this year. He's arguably the standout one. And honestly, I give him a lot of credit because when he first came into the league, Gakpo was a player that I looked at and I was like, a wide player at that height who doesn't really have crazy explosiveness. Like he almost seems to me like someone you can maybe mold into a number 9. But then his first year in particular, he really missed the intensity in his game. But now this season under Arne Slot has become such a threat. And Arne Slot has really done a good job of utilizing what is Gakpo's best strength. And that is his ability to strike a ball. Gakpo can hit the hell out of a ball, man. We saw it at the Euros. We've seen it at the World Cup a few years back. Saw it obviously for PSV all those seasons back. And this year, you're really maximizing his best attributes. And this guy, man, when he hits a ball, good luck. He gives Liverpool a 1-0 lead. And honestly, at that point, right, I just felt like it was always going to be Liverpool. Even before the game, I was telling Cam, I was like, this is one of those games, right? Spurs are not a team that are built to defend. They're not a team that are built to suffer defensively. This year, if anything, they've been too courageous. They've been too attacking. They've been too adventurous. They don't have enough pragmatism to them. But in terms of sitting deep and defending a lead for 90 minutes, Spurs are not built like that. Physically, tactically, but most importantly, mentally. They're not able to do that like an old school Jose Mourinho team, for example, or even Man United against Liverpool this season. Like Spurs just are not built to play like that. And obviously when you have a 1-goal lead heading to Anfield, you want to protect what you have. But I just thought to myself, right, if this was a league game, Liverpool versus Spurs, I'm not saying the result would have been too different. But Spurs would have 1000% approached the game a whole lot different today. And it almost makes me think this game, they almost get shook of themselves. Like, I don't know, like, it just didn't feel like a Spurs performance. And I get it. Spurs performances this year, playing how Spurs do, hasn't gotten them much success. But I feel like you've gotten to this point of the competition playing a certain way. You got to go with that. And to see Spurs lose 4-0 is not the disappointing thing here, because Liverpool's a much better team than they are. The league table shows it, the performances show it, the results show it. But I feel like if you're going to lose in a fashion that like stays true to yourself. And I feel like Spurs, for all the stick they've gotten about not being pragmatic enough, and I think there's truth to that, that doesn't mean go the complete other extreme. In this game, they were scared. They were cowardly, in my opinion. They were timid. They were way too conservative, and they allowed way too much pressure from Liverpool. In the first half, they couldn't keep the ball. They got on the ball, and it almost seemed like the panic stations kind of went off. And the one player who seemed like, or actually I would give two players in that first half who actually felt like they had the balls to hold on to the ball were Kulusevski and Jed Spence. And Jed Spence, honestly, for me, is one of the standout players of both these legs, even though he's ended up on the losing side today. But those are the only two players that get on it and like look up and want to do something with it. They want to keep it. They want to go forward. But how many times did we see today Kulusevski making a run forward? He's dribbling the ball, weaving his way out of pressure, and he looks up, and you have Heung-min Son to his left, and that's it. And by that time, Liverpool have already recovered. They're such a good defensive team, and it's a 6v2, when potentially it could have been, oh, you commit another body forward, 3v3 maybe, 3v4. But Spurs never even showed the impetus. They never even showed the desire to get another one. And I always felt in a game like this, Spurs were never going to keep Liverpool from scoring two. It was impossible. Even keep them from scoring one, I thought was tough enough. Keep them from conceding two. Spurs aren't built like that. So they needed to go at this game and grab a goal. If anything, grabbing a goal and making it 2-0 on aggregate would have been huge for them, because then all of a sudden Liverpool are chasing them. But Spurs trying to defend this Liverpool team for 90 minutes, it's impossible, man. And Liverpool showed exactly why that's the case. Mohamed Salah today, some of the touches, some of the passes, the penalty on top of it were just a work of art, and it shows you the difference in quality. You're looking at the best player, not only in the league, but arguably in the world at the moment, versus Spurs players who just can't even compete with that level of quality. I mean, the pass that he gives to Darwin Núñez, who wins the penalty, is just, at this point, vintage Salah. Like, he's becoming so good at slotting that pass in behind into the run of his center forward. Like, that's becoming a trademark for Salah. The Trivela in the first half, that's becoming a trademark in his game. And Cam made this point. I'm not trying to steal his point here. He's probably going to say it himself on a different video, but I really liked what he said. He told me Salah has really perfected the final third. In terms of when he's in the final third, it almost feels like every single time he gets the ball, something is happening. And one thing I really like about Salah is I feel like he knows his strengths and he knows what he's not capable of. And he never tries doing more than he can. And when he gets it, like, it's almost always the thing he has to do. Maybe the execution isn't always perfect, but he's always doing what he needs to do. He's never overdoing it, for example. Like, I've looked at Marcus Rashford at Man United a few times over the last few years, right? Just as an example, because I watch a lot of United. And Rashford, for me, for the last 2 years, has not been a good 1v1 dribbler. I feel like he's become stiff. He's become predictable. He's maybe lost a touch of pace. And yet he still tries hugging the left-hand side and weaving his way in and out of defenders. And honestly, the amount of times he tries dribbling these days without success is staggering, and he continues doing it. But Salah, for me, again, he knows everything he can do, knows everything he shouldn't even bother doing, and it just makes him the most effective player, because there isn't a single touch wasted. There isn't a single pass wasted. Everything that he does is with the goal of either scoring, assisting, or setting up his teammate. It's, at the moment, unstoppable. And it's why you look at the numbers, you look at the success, you look at the performances, he's putting together one of the best Premier League seasons we have ever seen. But I want to give another shout out to Dominik Szoboszlai. I think he grabbed his goal obviously towards the end, which I thought was tremendous work from Connor Bradley, who is just becoming, right? I want to say the ultimate deputy to Trent, but I genuinely believe this when I say it. If Trent decides to go to Real Madrid this summer, they have their replacement right there. I don't even think they need to waste money on a right back. Maybe on the left, Robertson's getting older. On the right, this kid, Connor Bradley, every single time he's called upon, gives you top level performances. Like, the standard hardly ever drops. Maybe in terms of like final ball it does. That I won't contest. But in terms of work ethic and in terms of defensive resoluteness and in terms of drive going forward and relentlessness, Connor Bradley just gives you a base level of 7, 8 out of 10 almost every single game. I'm such a big fan of this kid. I think obviously his physicality and his intensity is well documented, but he's a quality footballer as well too. His footwork for that Szoboszlai goal, his footwork on the right-hand side for one of those opportunities, it's crazy good, man, honestly. But Dominik Szoboszlai, I thought, well, I think, to be honest with you, the last few months has been a revelation for Liverpool. I saw Jamie Carragher this week saying, well, I'm not really Szoboszlai's biggest fan because of the lack of creativity at times. He's not your vintage old school 10, but the work ethic is just absolutely sensational. And he's absolutely spot on with the second part. But I even think his eye for goal is sneakily underrated, man. And he has very good feet. Like there are moments in that first half in particular where Dominik Szoboszlai is manipulating the ball extremely well. He's slotting guys through. He's combining well with others. But obviously the star on top is just the work ethic, man. And when you combine him with a player like Gravenberch, who was again just an A-star performance from him, man. I could give so many A-star performances to so many Liverpool players today. It's just one of the best performances you'll see from a team this year. And my dad was actually texting me. He was a big Man United fan. I always say he's the reason I got into the club. But he basically texted me today at one point. He goes, Liverpool has just become a machine. I'm so jealous of them. And I hear it, to be honest with you. The way they play is how every single team in Europe probably wants to play, like, or in terms of their fans. You want to see your team play like the way Liverpool played today. Like, just relentless, going forward, direct, positive. Obviously, you add the tremendous quality of so many players that they have. Van Dijk put the finishing touches on what was a 5-star performance from Liverpool. Tremendous header. He's so dominant in the air when he wants to be. Just an incredible performance from Liverpool. And like I said, thoroughly deserving of their place in the final. And we'll talk about that in a second, right? I do want to give a slight preview and give an ode to Newcastle as well too. But before I do, let's talk about Spurs, because I'll be honest with you, right? This might be one of the last times I speak about Spurs this season, and it's just because of the fact that they're irrelevant this season. This year, they're 14th place in the league. They made this cute little run to the Carabao Cup where, granted, they've had some big results along the way, beating United, beating Liverpool in the first leg. They're still in the Europa League, but wow, what a disaster of a campaign for Spurs. And honestly, there's a part of me that's kind of happy they didn't go to the final today. Not because, like, oh, I'm rooting against Spurs. I'm not, to be honest with you, but this whole idea that a Carabao Cup would have changed their season and saved everyone's lives, and wow, the club is back, like the mentality is going to change. Tonight is the prime example of how even if they had fluked a win tonight, a Carabao Cup is not changing anyone's mentality. I've always said this about the Carabao Cup. I was very happy when United won it a few years ago, but keep in mind, we finished third that season. At one point in the year, we were dreaming of a title race. Obviously, that was out of the realms of possibility, but we had a good season that year and then won the Carabao Cup. When Chelsea used to win the Carabao Cup en route to winning league titles with Chelsea, or with Jose Mourinho, it was okay because they were in the midst of a good season. City under Guardiola, they won it so many times en route to their league titles. And Liverpool will probably win the Carabao Cup this year, or at least they're favorites in the final, en route to winning the actual title itself. But please, man, if you unless you're a club like Swansea back in the day when they won the League Cup and they finished maybe mid-table, you can't fool me about the Carabao Cup like making or breaking a season. Spurs at this point, or at least I thought so. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm overrating Spurs here. But I just look at Spurs over the last decade, everything they've done to build the clubs in terms of stature to this point, in terms of going into a new state-of-the-art stadium, one of the best stadiums in the world, qualifying numerous times for the Champions League, making a Champions League final, being in title races if you want, being in cup finals, signing big players, hiring managers like Jose and Conte. You just kind of thought, right, or at least I thought, surely a Carabao Cup doesn't weigh as much in the eyes of Spurs fans and Spurs as a club as, I don't know, maybe it did 10 years ago, or as it does to a club like Brentford or Crystal Palace or something like that. Like, I'm not trying to devalue trophies here, because I even said it a few years ago. Silverware is the currency of football. It is, right? Trophies are the name of the game. But if we're also being real here, if silverware is the currency of football, the Champions League, the Premier League, I'd even say the Europa League, that's worth like £100, £50, £20. The Carabao Cup is worth like 10 cents. It's the least important trophy to win. It's nice to win it. I would never devalue winning it, but it's not changing a big club's fortunes. If you're a Crystal Palace, a Brentford, a Fulham, clubs that haven't won silverware in their entire history, then okay, I hear it. I'm not trying to devalue it for them. But I felt like for Spurs, what they have become in 2025, this shouldn't be their biggest priority anymore. Being 14th in the league and not seeming to be able to even remain, I don't know, defensively resolute over 3 games, that should be a big priority. And winning the Carabao Cup wouldn't have erased that reality. The way Daniel Levy is running this club into the ground should be the biggest priority. And that's not disappearing if they win a Carabao Cup. So I found all the conversation, all the discord around this Carabao Cup all season long extremely weird, in terms of, I've heard some people say like, oh yeah, we're really struggling, and Ange, I don't know what's going to happen to him, but he's definitely going to get until the Carabao Cup final if he makes it. Even if they did win the Carabao Cup this year, does that mean that Ange should keep his job? I'm not saying Ange should be fired here, but I think it begs the question. I don't think it should hold as much weight in the eyes of Spurs fans as it does. And I would have said that even if they had gone on to win the entire thing. Obviously they don't. But man, you talk about disappointing, right? This is one of the bigger nights in recent Spurs, in the last 10 years, I would say, for Spurs, right? It's not every day they go to a semi-final of any competition. And the way they've rolled over for Liverpool tonight is just like, wow. Why even show up if that's the way you're going to play? I feel for two players, to be honest with you. Like I said, I feel for Jed Spence, and I feel for Matthias Tell as well, too, because, wow, welcome to reality, my boy. Like, this is... this is tough. This is rough, bro. Honestly, he came on for the injured Richarlison, who I actually thought maybe first 20, 30 minutes was doing a decent job of holding the ball up well, but he goes off injured. Tell comes in, and Tell immediately shows you a bit of energy, a bit of positivity. He's making good runs in behind. He's going at goal. He's looking for crosses. He's hyping up the crowd, but it's like, Spurs haven't infected you yet. You haven't been infected by the Spurs virus. That's really the reality here. Because everybody else tonight, bar Jed Spence and Matthias Tell for me, 0 out of 10. Seriously. 0 shots on target. Maybe the goalkeeper as well too. The rest of them, man. And Ange as well too. 0 out of 10. 0 shots on target in a cup semi-final that your whole fan base has been hyping up and looking at as a bit of respite for a terrible season you've given them. And that's the way you go out and play. Again, nothing to take away from Liverpool, who put them to the sword today, and the pressure they played with. The press was intense. But wow, the first half, Spurs could barely string a few passes together. Like I said, every time they try going forward, they barely commit numbers forward. And the minute that Salah scores his penalty to make it 2-0, GG. Spurs had to score the first goal tonight because everybody knew the minute they went down 2-0 on aggregate, heads would drop, morale would fall, and the mentality, or rather lack thereof, that defines Spurs, and honestly, the lack of quality as well, too, that defines Spurs was always going to kind of seep through. And this is a really, really bad night for them. Like, obviously, you lose 4-0 whenever it's a bad night. But wow, this is like, if you weren't really fully aware of what a disaster season this has been and what a disaster scenario it is for the club at the moment, I don't think the separation between fans and ownership has ever been further away than it is now. And I'm sorry, signing Kevin Danso and signing Matthias Tell is not changing anything in the minds of how Spurs fans view Daniel Levy and Enoch. It's impossible. This is one of those nights where you look at it and say, wow, how far off are they, man? How far off are they? But give credit to Liverpool. They took care of business, and resoundingly so. And they will play Newcastle, who, I'll be real, I didn't make a video on them last night because they didn't surprise me. The minute they won 2-0 at the Emirates, I know some Arsenal fans were getting gassed thinking, oh, there could be a big night in the works here. Let's be real. First of all, Newcastle at St. James's Park against the big sides, that place is a fortress. That place becomes a cauldron. I've seen many a big team go to St. James's Park over the last 2, 3, 4 years and just find it absolute hell. And then you look at the quality that they have on display. Last night, in my opinion, was the ultimate reflection of Arsenal's biggest problems. First of all, how easily they seem to lose their heads in the biggest moments and like the actual crunch games, how easily they seem to kind of just fall apart. And then B, how lackluster these guys are in big moments in front of goal, man. Honestly, like the first chance from Odegaard in the first half, that could have really given this game a new perspective. And instead of really just putting his foot through it and going across goal, he slices it with his right and it hits the post and it goes out. And then you look on the other side, Alexander Isak. Oh, bro, he might be the best center forward on the planet. He might be the best center forward on the planet. Look, it probably won't be common consensus until, I don't know, maybe he has to make a big move to a title challenging team or be playing Champions League regularly. But in terms of quality, in terms of form in front of goal at the moment, in terms of all around game, I can't think of a single center forward in 2025 right now who offers you as much as Alexander Isak does. I can't think of one. And that's not to take away from anyone. Erling Haaland is a goal-scoring phenomenon. I don't think Isak can score as many goals over a season as Haaland. But also, I don't think a lot of players ever can score as many goals as Haaland over a season. That doesn't mean I think he's better than all of them. Like Henry, for example, I don't think scores as many goals a season on average as Haaland does if you put them head-to-head. But I think Henry's the better player. And what Isak is giving me right now, again, we have to see if he can maintain this for the next few seasons as well, too, because Haaland has been doing this for a while. But right now, the way Alexander Isak is playing, I think he can look at every single center forward dead in the eyes and say, yeah, I'm at your level at minimum. And he put Arsenal to the sword over these last 2 legs, man. Over 2 legs, he showed them the difference between a gunman, a world-level striker, and a pretender. I'm not going to say any names, but that's the difference right there. And that's ultimately why, for all the talk about Isak leaving Newcastle, You got to pay 130 million for this guy, man. Honestly, I think Newcastle would sell their stadium before they sell Alexander Isak. This guy will go for a Premier League record fee, undoubtedly. When you look at how much Rice and Caicedo and Enzo have gone for, this guy's going for more than all of them because he's better than all of these guys, man, in terms of what he can provide. He is unbelievable. And then when you add the weapons like Anthony Gordon, his right-hand man, or rather his left, if you want to look exactly on the pitch where he's playing, Josh Murphy, who, wow, is just, you would have thought that he'd be one of the first players sold under the new ownership, but he's kind of showcasing why, yeah, he's still in it. He's still here, scoring big goals. And in the midfield, I know Joelinton didn't play yesterday, but Bruno Guimaraes and Tonali are just two players that can get into, in my opinion, almost every single team in the league. They are that good. And Liverpool will go into this final as favorites, but let's not get it twisted. This is going to be an insane final. I actually cannot wait to see this final. I think these two teams match up so well in terms of the energy and athletic levels because Newcastle are one of the few teams in the entire league that can actually look at Liverpool's athletes and say, yeah, we can go band for band. Tonali, Bruno, Joelinton, Isak, Livramento and Hall bomb forward and come back. Like, they are a crazy athletic team, but then they can play as well too. And Newcastle, they're in their own little like wait for to end the trophy run. We know that. And I think they will actually play to the occasion, unlike Spurs today. I think that game at Wembley, obviously they're hurting from the last few years when they lost to Man United in the final. I think they're coming on into this game on revenge. They're coming in insane form. And they're coming, honestly, looking at Liverpool as well too, thinking to themselves, we can beat these guys. Again, Liverpool are favorites, but I hope Liverpool fans are not underestimating Newcastle in the final. This is going to be a crazy, crazy final. And while I would give Liverpool the slight edge, it would not surprise me whatsoever if on the day, Newcastle just give them hell, man. Because this is what this team gives you. They might not win every single game. It might not be pretty every game, but they give 110% every single game. The work ethic, the intensity, the press, the physicality. They bully teams. Can they bully Liverpool? That I'm not so sure about, but they will give it everything they got. I cannot wait for that final. I'm sure you guys can't as well too. Liverpool fans, let me know how you guys are feeling after a 5-star performance from your team. Spurs fans, another year. I mean, maybe, who knows? You guys got the Europa League, but I wouldn't bet on it personally. How are you feeling after such a disappointing night? Arsenal fans, Newcastle fans, let me know your thoughts underneath as well too. Like, share, subscribe. We'll be back this weekend with Premier League roundups. I'll see you next time. Peace.